Hare Krishna. So we're very fortunate that Hasyapriya Prabhu is gracing us with his presence here, his association. He belongs to an exclusive group of my god brothers and god sisters that I sometimes refer to as the trifecta, which is it's a term. Maybe it's a concocted. Well, all words are concocted. But it means 3 times perfect. Trifecta is what it means. And what I mean by that is that he and I both, we're born and raised in ISKCON, to put it in a phrase. And we're happy about that. Couldn't be happier. And sometimes we're serving in the same place, same temple in Los Angeles, sometimes in other places, but always serving Srila Prabhupada for, that's our life's mission, raison d'etre, reason for being, serving the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. And in the aftermath, when Prabhupada, aftermath of his disappearance, Srila Prabhupada gave some indication saying that after me, when the necessity arises to consult higher authority, you should consult Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And we discovered Prabhupada said, I accept him as my Shiksha Guru, what to speak of the benefit that you can have from his association. So it was not whimsical or for any other purpose. There was some genuine necessity to seek out the lotus feet of Srila Guru Maharaj. That is my point. Not curiosity or whimsically going here, nothing like that. We are men who never conceived of any other life than what we had known previously. But then coming in connection with the lotus feet of Srila Guru Maharaj, some transformation took place. And so as I contemplated and put into action preaching about Guru Maharaj and the Western world, some devotees from the very beginning joined that push. And Hasyapriya Prabhu and his wife Sharanangi Deity, later his son Vidura, they're part of that. So they're part of that initial group that promoting the glories of Srila Guru Maharaj outside of India. Remember, Yudamanyu Prabhu, who is also one of the founders, I like to say, I consider him one of the founders of the San Jose ashram.
Yeah.
And that should never be forgotten. He and Jivana.
And SoCal.
Yes, and SoCal ashram as well. They came from Seattle, Yudamanyu, Jivana, and Prabhala, in this truck that was affectionately called the garbage truck, which was this sort of old Toyota, broken down, flatbed truck they used to carry garbage. And so when they left, it was like, yeah, you can have the garbage truck, But, and we're going across the Golden Gate Bridge, and there's those who are opposed to our promotion of Guru Maharaj. And he said, well, what about those people who are saying he never preached in the West? Mm-hmm. This was, and I, we were talking to each other actually very loudly at the time. We're driving across the Golden Gate Bridge, almost like shouting back and forth. And I got some inspiration, because I was thinking, we're going to make books, and I was saying, the best way to deal with that argument is after we produce these books about Guru Maharaj, and there's no one will mention that again.
Right.
It won't be, no one will bring it up. And here it is. I'm not good at math. He's an accountant, so 15 plus, 18 is 33 years later. The Guru Maharaj's glories and his teachings went all over the world. And of course, particularly after the aftermath of Guru Maharaj's departure, then Srila Gurudeva went on, I don't know what the final count was, 22 or 26 world tours. It was a lot.
It was 10 in California. That's the number
right,
I remember.
10 in California alone. So when I say trifecta, what I mean, what also sometimes people, they see the picture of Srila Guru Maharaj and Srila Swami Maharaj sharing the Vyasasana in Mayapur, and Srila Govinda Maharaj, Srila Gurudeva is at the microphone singing and also speaking his famous Kam Pratikatayi Tami say rendering of the sloka of Raghupati Upadai. We use the Holy Trinity. So when I say it, trifecta, 3 times perfect, means having a substantial connection with His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami, Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj. And I like to consider myself a member of that group, and I consider Hasyapriya Prabhu a member of that, along with his dear wife Sharanangi Didi, and Srila Janardhan Maharaj is there, and Sureshwari, Ramai, the other. These devotees, they're like the substantial members of the Krishna consciousness movement for the last 40 years. Think about it. When someone says, oh, I've been here this long, that long. We were in Radha Damodar recently. Janardhan Maharaj took sannyas there, and I think 1971 at Rupa Goswami's Samadhi. That's when he took sannyas. So I consider it my good fortune to be surrounded and by the affection and embrace of these devotees. They've always stood by me and all the different times, and seeing something good, because that is their vision, is how to recognize sincere aspiration and others to glorify the Guru Varga, those who are held dear to Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj and Gurudev are dear to them, and we consider them the eternal associates of our Guru Varga. So to this day, Hasyapriya Prabhu, he is under the direction of Srila Janardhan Maharaj in Sokel, managing the Sokel ashram and with some vision of the future, and we're always happy. He comes to visit us once a year. It's a happy time for us. I advise you all to get his association. Tonight, in a few moments, he'll also say something, but I think tomorrow morning he can also speak, and because he's only going to be here a short time. So, Hasyapriya Prabhu, please accept our affectionate welcome and say a few words.
Well, I feel honored to be here. This is once a year I'm able to travel away from Sokel to visit the devotees in China, visit with Yudamanyu Prabhu, go to India.
And by the way, Sokel means California, Northern California, near San Francisco.
And also on this trip, then for the last 3 years, I've been able to come to Chiang Mai, get Maharaj's association, your association. So for me, it's a very wonderful time to get the association of devotees and to become rejuvenated in my own spiritual life and my own activities, and also to see that everywhere all over the world, devotees have the same qualities. Here we are worshiping Sri Giriraj Govardhan, worshiping Govinda Maharaj, worshiping Srila Maharaj, worshiping Srila Prabhupada, serving the devotees, making prasadam, cleaning the temple. This is our life. It's not like we're doing this in the meantime, waiting for a good job to come along. This is our life, and this is what, you know, we have faith from hearing the words of our acharyas, our teachers, that by following these activities, following this path, some success will come to us. Even though it may feel like it's so far away, that we're so covered by a material illusion, but we have some faith, because we have faith in our gurus. We have faith that if we follow these activities, then some benefit will come to us, some purification will take place. And so for me to travel around and visit the different centers and see the devotees doing all the same things all over the world, different devotees, different nationalities, different countries, different environments, but the same activity, that service to the deities, service to the devotees. Then it's very heartwarming for me to have your association and to come to this beautiful ashram. I took a walk around today. Just such a beautiful, peaceful environment here. And I was just thinking, you know, that Govinda Maharaj would be so happy to be able to come and spend time here. That this would be like one of his most favorite places. But you know, Krishna consciousness is easy and it's hard. So 1972, I received initiation from Srila Prabhupada in Los Angeles. And I remember thinking, well, I don't know about this, you know. But I could try it for a couple of years and see what happens, you know. But then when a couple of years passed, I forgot all about that, you know, commitment that I would think in a couple of years. And so then a couple of years turned into 5 years, 10 years. Now it's over 40 years. And so it's hard. It's hard because of our ego. Our ego gets in our way. And Govinda Maharaj, in every lecture practically he ever gave, he quoted that verse, Trinadapi Sanichena Tororapi Sahisana Manina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. So to be more tolerant than a tree, humble, offer respect to everyone without expecting respect in return. These are the basic principles that help us in our spiritual life, help us in our community, the community of devotees, because we all have egos, and how will we get along? How will we be able to cook together and clean together and do anything together? Our egos are always anxious to establish our own position. And so then following those principles of humility, tolerance, and offering respect, this is like the formula, the peace formula for the whole world, not just for us, but for everyone. And then it creates an environment where we can associate with one another and reap the rewards of that good association. When we're serving together, then some inspiration comes to us. That somebody's working so hard, you know, I could do that. I could work a little harder. I could be a little bit better at what I'm supposed to be doing. And so, like that, some association is necessary for us to help us along. This is something that it's not part-time. This is our life, and we need that affectionate assistance that we get from each other's association. And as Goswami Maharaj was saying about when Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada left his body in this material world in 1977, it was a catastrophe for us. It was a catastrophe. And really, I owe my life to Goswami Maharaj's publishing of Srila Sridhar Maharaj's books. And Sri Guru in His grace gave me some hope that there was some spiritual guidance that would help me in my life after Prabhupada's departure. And so we all have experiences like that where our whole world falls apart, and somebody comes along, a devotee comes along with a smile or a helping hand and lifts us up, and we can get back up on our feet and progress. And so this is such a opulence in the material world. 7 billion people out there who are selfish, have self-interest, who really has love and affection for someone else. There may be some hint of it, but really, when it gets down to it, it's a lot of selfishness. So who really has that? And that's the devotees. The devotees have love for one another, affection for one another, not helping each other because we'll get some benefit, that we'll get some remuneration, but out of affection. And Guru Maharaj talked about 4 types of action. One is out of fear, like an animal, fearful, a little bird, is on the ground looking for some insect or something, and he's always looking around, fearful he's going to be eaten by a bigger bird or a cat or something. Action motivated by fear. And then there's some prospect, action motivated by prospect. I think, I'm going to get something out of this. I'll be good. I'll do my work good. I'll get a good paycheck. I'll get a promotion. I'll get some prospect out of it. And then there's duty, this is my duty. I have to serve in this way. I have to take care of my family. I have to take care of my country or whatever, because it's some duty. If I don't do it, I'll be get a bad reputation. But then the highest stage of action is out of love, and that's the stage that we're aspiring to act on, is out of love, without any prospect of remuneration, without any fear or reprisal or anything, but and so we're so fortunate that that in this world, which is bereft of so much, bereft of real knowledge, of real understanding, we're so fortunate that in this world these great acharyas have come to give us this guidance on how we can act in a loving way with one another as devotees, aspiring devotees. Otherwise, how would we know? How would we know what to do? Or what is a loving relationship? We wouldn't know. We would only know what that mundane activity that we grew up with was. And so I feel very fortunate that our acharyas have given so much of themselves, traveling all over the world to give all of us some introduction to Krishna consciousness. And I feel very fortunate to be able to meet with you and have your association.
Hare Krishna. I remember once in St. Petersburg in lockdown, I was with Srila Gurudeva, and some Russian girl came in and she was saying all these kind of like high things to Gurudev, and I wanted to strangle her. I was just like gritting my teeth, and Maharaj would look over at me and I'd look back at him, but I was praying for this to end. And then it finally ended. He said something, she went away, and he turned to me and he said, "Maharaj, you are so tolerant." And I said, "Maharaj, I was only tolerating because you were tolerating." He goes, "No, I was tolerating because you were tolerating." So I figured, well, it still qualifies as tolerance. But another time, when I thought I was being someone, Srila Gurudeva and Avadut Maharaj, Avadut Maharaj will always say, if there's some problem with someone, he'll say, he just needs association. Mm-hmm. You know, if you go like, Hitler is bad, he'll go, he just needs association. Okay. And then he can be converted, and it's true. You know. But anyway, this one person, I thought, he is speaking ill of leading devotees, and it's damaging the faith of others. I favored him being like ousted from the association. You know. But Gurudev and Avadut Maharaj were tolerating. And so I thought, well, then I should change my position. So, and Gurudev went out in the afternoon, and while he was gone, I met with this man, and we talked, you know, and I just tried my best to shift my position. Because generally we'll think, even if we don't appreciate someone so much, we think, well, they've been accepted by Guru, they have appreciation for Guru, that cannot be doubted. Guru has appreciation for them, so then I should adjust myself with that. Anyway, so I did. And then when Gurudev came, you know, I'm waiting, like I want a star on my collar, kind of waiting for him to come back, and I'm proud, I want to tell him how good I am, you know, while he was gone, what a good boy I've been. So I start telling him that I've changed my position about that person, and now I'm, as you are seeing, and I'm seeing that way now too. And this shows how unpredictable Gurudev is. He said, I can never say that. And I'm going, no, I've changed to your position. He goes, I will never say that. He said, always finding fault with all the other, then he started taking he said, that's when he said, my religion is finding fault with myself. And that struck me. Because it was like that sloka of Mahaprabhu's that you say he quoted every lecture, he sat beneath it and lived it and personified it. It was like he further condensed it, and he said, my religion is finding fault with myself, not others. And another time, when you talk about what we learn in the association of devotees, about sometimes this is not on the basis of what you said about fear, prospect, duty, and affection, but from another, using the word prospect in another way. Saraswati Thakur says, Vaishnavi pratishthatate koro nishta. We don't concern ourselves with the opinions of everyone in the world. People believe this, they believe that, or so many people think like this, so many people think like that. Right? What does it say? Shrotavyadini Rajandra Ninam Santi Sahasrasa. Thousands of subjects, thousands of points of view, different, and all of them, you hear anything, you can be sympathetic to it. You can say, oh, now I understand why you see things that way. Right? Mundane perspective. But in Saraswati Thakur's prayer, he's saying, what we're concerned with is, what do the Vaishnavas think? And that's why I said, I was thinking, well, if Gurudev's thinking this, I'm not thinking the same way. He's thinking about someone another way. I want to readjust myself to be in line with his sort of thinking. But that can work in marvelous ways too. So sometimes Srila Gurudev, he would say, he'd be very happy. As things were expanding and more people were starting to appreciate Guru Maharaj's conceptions and this kind of thing. And our mission was growing, and especially around the world. And sometimes he'd be very happy and he'd say, you don't know how bright your future is, your future prospect. Because he's saying, I know where Guru Maharaj is, where he's situated, and where all of this is. I'm now paraphrasing what he was conveying to me. He's saying, you don't understand that fully. I know where all of this goes. You cannot, and he would say with great feeling, imagine how bright and wonderful is your future prospect. And I'm so happy about that. So, and at different times he would say this. And sometimes we know Gurudev, another practicing of his religion, finding fault with himself and praising others. Again, it's Mahaprabhu's teachings. Amanina manadena. So and I said to him once that this praise, because I had heard as a new devotee, we'd sometimes hear and I think it's verifiable, it's written, Saraswati Thakur once said, we were talking about this sloka the other day, if a sadhu flatters me, he becomes my enemy. He means in a particular way, because rather, that type of agent, as we see in the pages of Chaitanya Bhagavat and elsewhere, Advaita, he's trying to get Mahaprabhu to chastise him. So he preaches Mayavad, and when Mahaprabhu's beating him, he's in ecstasy, oh, you love me. In other words, the worst thing, and Gurudev said this with Guru Maharaj too, he said, if Guru Maharaj is yelling at you, he said, you're okay. You're all right. He said, if he becomes indifferent to you, you're in trouble. So indifference, that's intolerable. Better to be yelled at, chastised, beaten. Then that means the Guru cares about the disciple. But to be indifferent, that is unbearable. So anyway, so I said to Guru, I said about this praise, because I said, basically could you tone it down? I thought it was, on the one hand, so wonderful and so extreme, but I'm saying how realistic is this? Because I'm acquainted with myself. So I'm saying, you're saying those things, but I know my consciousness, my inner self, I'm not seeing what you see. Or on that, so I was saying if you could, tone down the glorification. And Gurudev was hurt. And he said, I am practicing my religion. He said, this is what I feel. He said, you think I'm flattering. He said, this is what I feel in my heart. And I thought, he's real, he's genuine. Because sometimes others, they observed him interacting with people and they think, oh, I can do that too. No, you can't do that. Because the difference is, from Srila Gurudev, it's from his heart, it's real. It may sound like excessive flattery or something. He actually believes this, feels this, and he's giving this to you. He has the capacity to give that, what he sees and envisions. So when I was corrected by him, I went to my room and I was saying okay, there's one side, I understand who I am, what I'm like, these kind of things. Then on the other side, there's Guru Maharaj and Gurudeva, and they're saying these other things about a future prospect, bright future, these wonderful things. And this was my solution. I thought, well, who do you have more faith in? You and your own estimation of yourself? Or them who can actually see your spiritual aspect and its development and potential? And I thought, well, of course, I believe in them. And then I remember Saraswati Thakur, when he says, we don't care for the opinion of mundane people, it can include yourself. This so-called honest, realistic assessment that sometimes leads devotees to withdraw from the association. They're going to be honest now about their lives and everything. Whereas really, in the heart of the Vaishnava, they see who you are, what your service aspect is, and its development and potential. So what they say to us, it's our faith in that and their belief in who we are and what our prospect is that gives meaning to our spiritual life. And factoring that in, then of course we have to extend that to others. Our God brothers and God sisters, then we have to think, well, if this is the situation I'm in, and I like to think of myself as being a sincere soul, then cannot I extend the same consideration to them? As Guru Maharaj said when approaching, don't seek your fortune at the Department of Justice, but go to the Department of Mercy. And there, when you're seeking your fortune, you cannot object to the presence of another. You think, no, I have something to tell you about him. I'll tell you privately. You know, no, he's getting mercy too on the basis of the same principle. And if you look at Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, this famous soliloquy or talk given by, I believe it's by Portia, the girl who's masquerading as a male lawyer. She's trying to save her love interest. And it begins with the line, "The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth like the gentle rain from heaven." It's very beautiful. If you look at this, you would think Guru Maharaj wrote it. It's Shakespeare, but it looks like Guru Maharaj wrote it. That's how much it's in line with what he expresses. And he says, I'm paraphrasing now because I don't have it committed to heart, but he says, when a king holds in his hand a scepter, that's the danda. That means the rod of chastisement. That's what the scepter represents. The scepter represents the temporal power of kings, that, you know, we can get heavy with you if necessary. Saying, but when a king who's holding that scepter, when his decisions are infused with mercy, said at that moment kings become divine. Right? They're holding that temporal power, but when they're merciful in their dealings with others, there's an element of the divine at that point. And then this point is made, which Guru Maharaj also makes. She says, and if not for this quality of mercy and the prospect of mercy, what hope is there for any of us? Right? So, it's only, I'm trying to stay in line with what you said earlier about the love and affection we learned from the Guru Varga. It is the dispensation of this divine mercy. That's what's coming down in this line. Right? To take you to the world of love and affection. That's how Krishna's abode, Goloka Vrindavan, the spiritual world, is to be understood. As Guru Maharaj said, where here we know even the soil potentially is our enemy. Maybe the air is harmful for us. The water might be harmful. We're not unlike those birds. We're also worried about so many things, right? That's the nature of this environment. At padam yad vipadam tesham. At every step, there's danger potentially. The guru world is where everything has your interest at heart, more than you do. Why? Because we don't know ourselves fully or actually. So that world where they see what your potential is, they have your interest at heart. The soil has your interest at heart. The water, the air, what to speak of the divine souls traversing that plane. They have our best interest at heart. When Sagar Maharaj said to Guru Maharaj, just wondering about Saraswati Thakur and saying like, he must have been very sweet, but we don't hear much about him. We don't know much about him personally. And Guru Maharaj said, well, he said, he was sweet, he said, but only internally. He said he had the sweetness of Vrindavan within, and it could only be detected within. Externally, the Singha Guru, lion-like Guru, slashing Mayavad, Sahajism, left and right, taking the position of a devastator. But in the song, Guru Maharaj writes, Janaka Dika Vatsalya Snigdha Padam, Pranamami Shada Prabhupada Padam. He's saying he has more love and affection in his heart than your own father does. He's come from the plane of love and affection, to mercifully dispense mercy in such a way as to, the end result is we'll be taken into that plane of love and affection. And when we mentioned the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudeva, sometimes Guru Maharaj would say, by affection's force, they're pulling us into that plane. Because we think, we're almost angry with Krishna that how can you do this to us? Gurudeva said about Guru Maharaj, like, I've done everything you ever asked me to do, but and it's fine. He said, don't do this to me. This is the one thing I'm asking you not to do. To leave this world. So, and in the absence, you use the word catastrophe, I think, which is a very appropriate word. Disaster, catastrophe, sense of abandonment, being orphaned. You joined in 72, I joined in 71. It means we were like 5 years old, 6 years old, spiritual children at that time. And in need of guidance. There was one lady from England, maybe Indian lady, but from England, and she was trying to rush to Srila Swami Maharaj's bedside in this final time, arrived like on the day he left the world or whatever. She was devastated, as you can imagine. Someone sent her to the mat, to Guru Maharaj. And one of the things he told her was, the infinite has infinite alternatives. Krishna's not, bankrupt, or that domain. Guru Maharaj reminded, yes, in this world, Sudurlabha Bhagavata Iloki, it's very rare. So we consider ourselves extremely fortunate. 3 such souls in one lifetime. But Guru Maharaj would remind him and say, but the world they've descended from, everyone is of that nature there. So it's something hopeful. And sometimes the devotees, they would say, like Jesus, Prabhupada's going to come back, that kind of thing, like the second coming or something. And they would ask Guru Maharaj if that was, and Guru Maharaj is very generous and grandfatherly, and he doesn't want to, disturb someone's faith or disappoint. He'd say, it is possible. He said, and what you will do in the meantime, while you're waiting for him, when he comes back, he'll say, what did you do while I was gone? And you'll say, oh, we were waiting for you to return. He said, no, you'll serve as much as you can in the meantime. But then he also told the truth. He said, Krishna, what if Krishna wants to keep him with him and send another agent? Do you object to that? And everyone, but then Guru Maharaj saved them. He'd go back and he said, but it's also, they tell Krishna, says, I want to keep him here or you go. And then he said, but he may turn to Krishna and say, no, they won't accept any other, I have to go. So it went around. In the end, everyone was happy. But Guru Maharaj also told the truth. Just as we heard the other day, Srinivasa Charja, he's got the seva to learn Bhagavatam from Gadadhar Pandit. Due to the tears washing away the slokas, they needed new Bhagavatam, goes to Navadvip, takes a couple months to make one, comes back, he's left the world. Goes to Vrindavan, the Rupa Goswami, arrives on the day of his departure. He has like a heart attack, he faints, he can't take it, he wakes up in the ashram of Jiva Goswami. So that thread was continued there. Raghunath Das Goswami wants to finish his life. After Mahaprabhu and Srip Damodar are gone, he's leaving Puri, I'll go to Vrindavan, see Radha Kund, Govardhan Hill, and jump from Govardhan Hill. Then he finds Rupa and Sanatan. Says, oh, I see Mahaprabhu and Srip Damodar are alive and well in them. That's the way the Krishna consciousness movement continues. That when Guru Maharaj said after the disappearance of Saraswati Thakur, they'd be traveling around, and this one man who happened to be an astrologer, I think by profession, whatever, had some appreciation for Saraswati Thakur and Gaudiya Math. He said, I don't see in any of you, what I found, with all due respect, what I saw in him. So Guru Maharaj said, that I can understand, but you don't see anything? You say, and I would say this, I echoed this before I heard it to the disciples of Prabhupada, and saying, you're saying Prabhupada spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. But is there anyone who is an example of this? Who received this Krishna consciousness from him? Or you dismiss everyone else? Everyone else is canceled but him. But he spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Then there should be some people, and as Gurudeva would say, quoting that God brother of Guru Maharaj, whether it's 2%, 5%, there should be some percentage of Krishna consciousness within them. Otherwise, you're calling into question the great work he did of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. So it's always like that. These Vaishnavas, they, by their mercy, their love, affection, they gave themselves to us. That's what they really did. We can think conceptually or otherwise, but another way of looking at this is they gave us themselves, right? Because we see they're each different. They know some of the same slokas, but their personalities are different. So really what they gave us is themselves. And like Krishna, sometimes the gopis, they're complaining. They're saying, Krishna, he's so charming, he's so sweet, beautiful, irresistible. He came and addicted us to him, and then he went away. They're saying, why is that? That's not fair. They're saying, now you made us mad for you, and then you withdrew yourself. So sometimes we think like that. Each one charming in their own way and addictive. But then Guru Maharaj was saying, yes, so by that, when they apparently withdraw, which means into another plane, prakat, aprakat, manifest, unmanifest, in the world that is unmanifest to us, they are there, our guardians are real, the force of affection should draw us toward them, toward that plane.
And Maharaj, your point about that these qualities of Krishna consciousness, may not be. We may look at our the great acharyas and see, 100%, 110%, 200%. We may look at our God brothers and God sisters and see 2%, 5%. But that's something. That's something significant, and that's something that is it's for our own benefit to be able to see those qualities in one another, and not to be distracted by the negative, mundane qualities that we all also have, but to appreciate those spiritual qualities. And Govinda Maharaj was talking about this subject once, and I asked him, I said, well, we hear, we have so many rules and regulations to follow and how important they are to follow. But then we also hear how to be tolerant and so how to reconcile both.
Harmonize.
So he said, for myself I demand perfection, for others I tolerate.
Yeah.
It's such a simple reconciliation of those two concepts. Is that we may look at somebody else and see that they're not following very strictly, but that's our tolerance. Our tolerance is to look at them and still see those devotional qualities and to be enthused by that. But to look at ourselves and think, oh, I'm not doing this right. I know I should be correct myself. I know what the proper etiquette is. I'm not doing it, and I should look at myself and try to correct myself. So otherwise, it's really, how will we survive as a society, as a group of devotees working together in harmony? How will we be able to survive? There has to be this concept of tolerance, and but for myself to demand perfection. We don't minimize the rules and regulations in Krishna consciousness when it comes to myself. but for others, then we try to see that quality, that devotional quality, and to associate on that level. And to give some affection to one another, to help each other when we need it. It's not, like I said before, we all go through periods when things are difficult, and sometimes just, knock on the door and a smiling face and an enthusiastic word can kind of take us, change our whole day from, a down day to an up day, And so, we can try to associate with one another like that and help each other, then our group will be strong, and individually we will benefit, and our God brothers and God sisters will also benefit.
When we were with some God brothers walking from Hrishikesh to Badrinath, it takes around 2 weeks, and we're not totally experienced doing this, and at times it seems like it's taking forever. I mean, you're in the Himalaya, and we're on the so-called Pada Rasta, the footpath. So there's no signs of civilization at all. For miles, maybe every 2 days, you see something, a sign of civilization. And so, but what happened alternately, if I became dejected, my companion would say, no, don't stop now, it's just like, right around the corner, really, yeah, But all right, okay, and then you'd get your second wind and go, then they're feeling down, you do the same thing for them. That's part of the principle of association, is to deal, it's guhyam akyati pruchjati, Rupa Goswami says in Upadeshamritam, which Guru Maharaj says is really Mahaprabhu through Rupa Goswami, but condensed on this principle of guhyam means confidentially revealing how you feel to another devotee, inquiring and helping one another. But you made me also think of something Guru Maharaj said once that shows how sweet they were in an ordinary way too, because we know how extraordinary they are. But he said once, he and some God brothers at the Mutt, they're inside, and they're just laughing hysterically about something. Something was really funny, and they're just laughing uncontrollably. And then some, very dignified gentleman entered the room, and they thought, oh no, he's going to think we live in an ashram, And we're here like enjoying, frivolously, like they all they were embarrassed and chagrined. And he said, and the man said, I just came because I've never heard such wonderful laughter in my whole life, and I'm captured by the sound of your laughter, But I like it because it showed like they also knew when to have a good laugh. We know Gurudeva, he can make Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj laugh and others. So much so that Swami Maharaj said he's a transcendental humorist. I think at the time, Lalita, like if you go in front of Gurudev with a bag, whoever you are, he wants to see in your bag. And other parts of the world, people would think that's rude, or he has to see what's in your bag if you walk in front of him. And she knows that, so she's showing the bag automatically, like you do when you go through a scanner or something. And her bag has like what your lunch is going to be. And it has some, we can say, green things, different types of green things. Gurudeva is looking and he says, oh, I can see that your Lord is Krishna. Yeah. Like that. And you go like, what? And it took me, I had to think, and Maharaj is looking to see if I get it. And I started to giggle and laugh. And what do you mean? He said, I can see your Lord is Krishna. Who is Krishna? He's Govinda, like we just heard on the Govardhan. He's the Lord of the cows. So he's saying, what you're showing me, that looks like cow food. That's something you would give a cow. He's saying, so I can see your Lord is Krishna. So it's like funny, but he has this way of being funny, but ontologically, philosophically, he's teaching you something too in the background. And I thought, where there's only one place I've ever seen anything like this or heard this, is a little bit seeing the writings of the Goswamis, some of these pastimes, and I thought, oh, the Braja Gopis have this type of humor in their dealings with Krishna. It's just very sweet, charming humor that always has some sort of philosophy in the background and is based upon love and affection. That's why Gurudev said, like with Guru Maharaj, you can, like you say, read the book, Sri Guru and His Grace. You've never met him, you can be converted by you read one talk. With Gurudev, he said, you need to be around me and interact with me, and then you'll see what is, who he is personally, the power of his affection. Because he said it was sometime, dealing with all of us was like the lion tamer, when they've got all the lions sitting on the stool, behaving, all these different sannyasis and their egos, and he's got them all sitting like that. Because he knew how to, with love and affection, harmonize everyone. And I asked him about Trinadapi Sunitjena because he's emphasizing it so much. And I said, Maharaj, when did you realize this? I didn't even really know how to pose the question, but I was just saying, when did you key into, like why this was so significant? And he said, out of desperation. He said, having tried everything else. He said, nothing else works. He said, this actually works. And I thought, that's how he manages everything, is through this sloka, which Kaviraj Goswami said you should wear like a garland. Like, as I mentioned the other day, not just from time to time, but it was his method. Following this principle is how he managed everything and why he was so successful.
Govinda Maharaj was in Sokel once, and in his room, many devotees there. It was always packed for his darshans. And there was a woman there who was from ISKCON. She was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And Govinda Maharaj talked so affectionately about Srila Prabhupada. I remember the first time I heard him speak about Prabhupada when he came to Santa Cruz and gave a lecture. And I thought, at first I was, I didn't know Govinda Maharaj. I was a little, not suspicious, but, reserved. And, but when I heard him glorifying Prabhupada, I thought, wow, he really knows Prabhupada, a lot more than I do. Anyway, that was, Govinda Maharaj had so much affection for Srila Prabhupada. So he was talking about Srila Prabhupada, and he used this term, that how desperate Prabhupada was.
Oh, right.
And used that word desperate. And we all knew what that word meant, that, it was a compliment, how
right.
Prabhupada was so intense,
right.
to
do or die.
Do or die, to do his, fulfill the order of his guru, his own guru. So he used that word desperate, and then that woman objected. She thought that was a insult,
right,
to use as an adjective to describe Srila Prabhupada. And so she, some objection she was giving, and then. And Govinda Maharaj said, you were right, and I was wrong. And, she totally diffused the situation.
Yes.
The woman was fine, and, she,
right.
Meanwhile, everybody wanted to strangle her.
Right.
But, Govinda Maharaj, he lived that humility.
Yeah.
And like you said, that's what worked. And it worked in that situation, and it worked in so many thousands of situations.
He didn't allow his ego to get riled and become defensive.
I'm the Acharya, and you're saying
how can you don't understand who you're talking to. He didn't do that.
Right.
And also in Mexico, I don't know if you were there, but I think you were there, when that children did a play where Tapana Nandini lives. What's the name of that place? Tikul? Oh. Medellin, not Medellin, something with an M. Merida, not Medellin. Now I've just insulted all the Latin American devotees. You don't know anything. It's true, I don't know anything. But anyway, Merida. And so they got Bhuvan Mohan doing a simultaneous translation over like UN headsets. Right. One guy is like a pilot who trains 747 operate. These are like, people are dressed to the nines. There's this, it was like a super dignified group of people. And then there's this children's play that's like, sometimes children's plays are charming. Uh-huh. This one was just, I don't know how to describe it. I'm supposed to know something about like Krishna consciousness in a very small way. I couldn't recognize what they were doing. Like usually, it's some pastime, you go, oh, it's like, Krishna, stealing yogurt, or Krishna and Kali, or this was unfathomable what was going on, And I was
lost in translation.
Yeah, and well, I didn't have one of those headsets. But anyway, we're looking at it, and it was just, how children are, the adults, now you say this, and it was one of those kind of things. These are real little children. Anyway, it was getting awkward, like just increasingly awkward. Like it wasn't getting anywhere. And I was like, oh no. And there's these people, and and Gurudeva, he starts to speak, and he said, I am so pleased and happy to see that although I have come here to say something about Mahaprabhu, all of you are already practicing his teachings. He's saying, because what you just saw, who could tolerate this? He said, but you do not know, they're doing this for me.
Right.
So he just like what everyone knew. He said, this is intolerable. He said, but they are doing this out of their love and affection for me, and therefore you are tolerating.
Right.
And so he just like saved the situation and won over the whole group by this kind of honesty, admission, saying what it was, and then turning it into something else. That takes some type of spiritual genius.
And lack of ego.
Yes. In Govardhan, he'd say, someone would come to see him, and he'd talk about his condition. His play with the English language, he'd go, I am invalid. He wouldn't say, I'm an invalid. He'd say, which is the way you normally say it. He'd say, I am invalid, but my friends are valid.
Govinda Maharaj would say, I don't really know English that well, but he knew English better than I knew English.
Right. He can play with words, give them new meanings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some man from Govardhan came speaking the local dialect. I could pick up words. I imagined that what he was saying was that he had been in Radhakunda and that there was some kind of a feast and these were the things that were served. That's about what I could get from it, And he was going on and on for half, and Maharaj is listening. Oh, Baba, oh, Ore Baba, and then, and after that, I said, Maharaj, what was that all about? And he goes, I couldn't understand a word he was saying. But then that, he went away. He was happy. He felt like he poured. Someone really listened to him. He said, I don't understand anything he said.
Govinda Maharaj captured the whole world with his affection, that is evidence today, all over the world. So many devotees have still so much affection and dedication and chastity to Govinda Maharaj's activities and his teachings and his centers. That is more powerful than anything that we can ever imagine, that affection. More powerful enough to even inspire us to change ourselves for the better, which is a pretty hard thing to do. We all want to change ourselves for the better, but it's very, very difficult. But that affection that he had, that he gave us, then gave us that inspiration. I want, we were talking about complimenting the devotees, that that if he said something that we knew wasn't true about ourselves, it inspired us to make it true.
Yeah.
And then, because it was said with so much affection, it wasn't said with just a compliment or, just superficial. It was said with love and affection, and that he wanted us to be that way, and then we wanted to be that way. A very, very powerful way to deal with one another.
Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Krishna Govinda Deva Goswami Maharaj ki
Jai.